Ebullient greetings. I'm your host, Jackie Bird of Jackie Bird Spiritual Wellness, your guide to stress and anxiety relief, mindfulness, awareness, self-care, self-love, and personal growth. Welcome and thank you for joining me as we roll with peace in mind. Greetings. Today's riff is Our Personal Pathways, a talk with Natasha Rivers. Natasha Rivers is a spiritual thinker, quantum alchemist, intuitive guide, and truth seeker devoted to conscious evolution. Through grounded conversations and unapologetic insight, she explores shadow work, sovereignty, energetic regulation, and the expansion of personal power. Her work invites listeners to stay awake, stay embodied, and lead with light in a rapidly unveiling world.
I'm so happy to have you. And I want to ask you right off the bat, what is a quantum alchemist?
Okay, so on an alchemy level, you're utilizing the energy that's presented, and you're also utilizing elements of the earth and how the planets are aligned. And so when it's quantum alchemy, it's that you're moving the way that you alchemize energy, the way that you change energy on a quantum level, which is like it changes timelines. It changes things in the past, present, future all at once by making changes in the present moment. And sometimes that even requires us going back into other timelines, changing that timeline so that it matches and kind of domino affects the consequences or the outcomes to here and now. And it is, the quantum is that it's everywhere. It's not just here. It's not just happening right here.
I think that's a weighty concept for us mere mortals to grasp, because we think so much in terms of what you can taste, smell, see, hear. We think so much in the five senses, and it's hard for a lot of us to conceptualize anything outside of that.
Yeah, but that's what the universe is. That's what God is. That's what source is. That's what we always try to connect to. And sometimes what happens is that we connect only in the crown, only in this space. And when you are able to do quantum alchemy, you're extremely grounded and you're bringing all of that information into the physical five senses, which is why it's such a dramatic effect that happens when you're able to heal on that level.
Yeah. So there's like all these questions jockeying for dominance in my head. So I'm gonna just go back a little bit. When we met, you had a band. And
I did.
Were you in this headspace of what you're doing currently, or is this something that was humming in the background?
It was humming in the background. Actually, funny thing, I didn't believe in any of the stuff that I do right now. I would actually kind of poke fun at like readers and like spiritualists, and it wasn't for me at that point. I was very much in the 3D. I had no other, I could not conceptualize anything bigger than me. And I didn't believe in anything bigger than me. And I guess that's what trauma does to you too. But at that point, I was in a band, and I was creative. But what's interesting? I think back on the lyrics in that band, and they were all channeled, and they were all about healing, and so it was very much humming in the background and trying to present. And I didn't have that tool. I didn't have that like aha moment yet.
Okay, so that brings me to what changed?
I had
Beside
a son.
you.
I had a son. I always knew there was something like gift-wise within me when I had gotten into the relationship with my son's father, because it created like a baseline of safety. And I remember saying like, I feel stuff in the house and I'm scared, and I didn't know how to explain it. But when we had our son, he like blasted me open.
Wow.
And all of my gifts that I had been repressing, I couldn't repress them anymore. And I actually suffered really badly from postpartum and PTSD and I almost feel like at one point I was dropping into like psychosis because my gifts were so open and I did not understand what was going on. And my husband at the time looked at me one day and said, you get really frustrated over things and you're really angry. And I just snapped and I was just like, I need to fix this. And I had already been searching for some therapies, and I wound up going into like almost a full-time therapy. I was there 4 days a week for like 3 or 4 hours a day. And they taught us how to meditate for anxiety. And once I figured that out, everything started to unravel. And once I learned how to ground, I started understanding, these voices and these visions and these things, like I can actually control them, and they're not something far away from me, and they're happening directly in my body. And from there, I self-taught myself how to do everything that I do today. But my son was the awakening moment. He was my spiritual awakening. I was very awakened to like the systemic stuff and like, the politics and the food and all of that stuff. But he gave me my spiritual awakening because I didn't want to repeat the struggles that my parents had brought on to me. So I went to therapy, and that's what opened me up.
That's fantastic, because so many people struggle with where they are currently, and some people don't see any way out. Like I remember when I had a nervous breakdown and I was suicidal, I didn't see any way out. All I could see was the bleakness and the helplessness and hopelessness that I was submerged in. And so I think it's so important for people to know that you always have choices, whether they're conscious or unconscious. You are making choices. And
that'll bring you back into the quantum part of it, because if you don't have access to information, then you do feel like you're in that box of like, I can't get out of this, because I grew up highly suicidal and really just in devastation most of my life, up until I took my control back and decided, wow, I can actually make a choice and I can hold myself accountable to do something better for myself, so I can ripple effect that out. But if you don't have the information available to you, you can feel really stuck. And I don't think a lot of us had that information available up until recently.
Right. That's very true. Because there's nothing like being stuck and feeling like, I remember always saying, when I would talk to a friend, that I felt like I was in a chasm, like I had the earth opened up and swallowed me. I just felt like that's where I was. And to you said something really major about, I'm just going to paraphrase it, taking responsibility. You claimed yourself.
Yeah, I feel like accountability is the one thing that a lot of our spiritual community avoids, because they like to blame and point fingers, but actually everything is internal. And so if you can take accountability for the parts of yourself that you're not aligned with, and you can change that, then you actually start to attract things that align with the changes you've made, as opposed to, I know when I was in scarcity and I was in fear and I was like constantly complaining about my life, like I didn't really have good friends. I didn't appreciate my job didn't appreciate me. And I do really believe that a lot is a reflection of who we are. And even on a massive level of what's coming out right now, it is a reflective of our own consciousness.
Yes. Because people always think it's everything's outside of you. And to understand that what is occurring, it may not be you personally, like each of us personally, but there's a collective consciousness that
it's a conglomerate,
is being played out right now, the good and the bad. And I think that we are, I have to laugh about this conversation, Natasha, because it's kind of like we just picked up like wherever we were last talking. But I want to, before I even make the point I was going to make, I want to kind of, because some listeners may be going, quantum alchemist, what, wait, stop, hold it. I want to back up just a little bit and return to you were in the band, you had your son, it opened you up, you did a lot of work on yourself, a lot of journeying into yourself, in
A lot of shadow work, yeah.
exploration, and ultimately taking responsibility. So on that note, for people that are feeling lost, stuck, afraid, because we have a lot of fear right now happening in the world. There's a lot of messaging that's going on. AI is going to take your jobs. We're going to hell in a handbasket. All of these things. That's what's floating around right now. So what do you say to that?
So it's hard for me to not talk about this on a quantum level. So we'll try to bring it into a more grounded space, right? Which is vibration, right? Yes. Everybody in the spiritual community understands that things are made of vibration. So in general, the vibration of fear is being used to create more fear, because fear can only create more fear. And so the power that you take back is to ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of? And this was coming up for the collective this week deeply. What am I actually afraid of? Am I afraid of losing my partner? Am I afraid of losing my job? Am I afraid, like the AI thing, like, yeah, good, take over my job, because now I can step into my purpose, Like, we don't want to work jobs anymore. We don't want to work for things. We want to step into our purpose as a collective. And the fear narrative is really the best thing you can do for your own internal work, is say, what am I holding on to that I'm so afraid of? Because in general, fear really doesn't work with your spirit. Your spirit has surrender and trust in it. It has faith.
Yes.
And so I do a lot of curiosity in my healing, which is asking myself questions. Why am I angry? Anger is sacred. It means something's not right. Something's not aligned with my morals. Why am I scared? Why am I holding on to shame for that? Why am I feeling guilty? Why am I blaming this person? And it's a constant asking myself questions, and literally sitting there, and I keep asking myself questions until I get to the root. Right? Because I can say, what am I afraid of? And I can say, I'm afraid of losing my husband. I'm afraid of us not being together. Okay, well, why? Right. Why are you afraid of that? Right. Because you can't, it's like the awareness brings so much healing in, is like, why am I afraid to lose him? Well, let's go a little deeper. Well, maybe I'm afraid of being alone. Why are you afraid of being alone? Right? Who taught you that being alone is something to be afraid of? And I feel like just going down that list and going down the questioning of whys and hows and who taught this to you, and where's the first time you learned that? When did you experience that? It opens up the vibrations within you. It opens up the information, and it allows you to actually look at yourself. And that's what most people avoid, is staring themselves in the face authentically and saying, wow, okay, well, a lot of the times I got to the root, I was like, that doesn't really make any sense to me. Why would I be afraid of that? And then you give yourself the option to choose something differently. If I would have stayed in fear of being alone, I would have never left someone who devalued me. I would have stayed, and I did stay for quite a long time. And what it does is it keeps you, for me, you had your own explanation. For me, it was like, I'm in the mud. I'm dragging myself through life. I can't get into a light state. And so when you ask yourself these questions, it's not just about getting to the root. The embodiment part is, now what am I going to do to make change?
Yes.
Am I going to stay in fear? Or am I going to say, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on myself. I'm going to choose myself. And I'm not going to stay with someone who devalues me, or stay at a job that doesn't pay me enough to have a happy life, or a life of freedom. And it really is like, that's the scary part to most people, is once you figure it out, you have to make a change. And then your nervous is like, oh man, I don't want to do that.
Right. And also, piggybacking on the whole fear thing, because we humans get into this thing of, it's almost like, what is it? The devil you know than the devil you don't. You would rather stay in a situation that's not comfortable, pleasing, healthy, because you know what that is. There's a comfort in that. There's a comfort in that. You don't know what's on the other side of that. And because we are not reinforced with positivity, in the sense of if you are looking to having a good time in your life, you will have a good time in your life.
Yeah.
That's too simple for people.
Exactly. No, and it's so funny to piggyback off of what you just said. I use the term, the nervous system will always pick the familiar hell over the unfamiliar heaven.
Oh God, that's so good.
Because it just repeats. I tell my students, like, your nervous system is like a crappy librarian. It just holds on to all your past stories. Mm-hmm. So there's no fear of the unknown. It's fear of repeating. And so it will actually subconsciously stop you from making the decisions that you need to make to actually set yourself free from situations, relationships, and things and experiences that are not aligned with your soul's purpose.
Right. And you know, you were talking about asking yourself. I find that people generally don't want to know because they're afraid that they will have to keep asking. It's like they're layers. We are layered individuals.
Layers. Yes.
And so, you know, because I'll see where people are like, oh, I thought I healed that. Oh, I thought I solved that. There are layers. There are deeper layers to everything. You're a, multi-layered, multifaceted being.
And that's the quantum part.
Yes.
That's the quantum
yes.
part. In a nutshell, that's the quantum part. It's the layers. Mm-hmm. It's the repetition of the trauma or the programming following you to this life from other lifetimes and experiences that you've had.
And the ones that you're currently having in this particular lifetime. Because it's like when you start asking questions, there are more questions to ask. And I find that people don't want to know. They don't want to go that deep. Because they're afraid of what they'll find. And the thing that you ultimately find is yourself. You find...
Which is really cool.
And that is so beautiful. You find yourself and you find that you are in a position to be more attentive and more mindful of the choices that you make coming down the pike, as opposed to the choices that you've made. And then also people get into this blame thing. Well, it's my fault that I did this, or this is somebody else's fault, as opposed to seeing that these are experiences, these are choices, and you shouldn't keep score, but to just recognize that if you want to change the situation, you have to change how you look at stuff.
Exactly. And I'll give you a really good example on this, right? So like, we don't have to stay in the guilt. So my son said, I got upset when daddy made a basketball the other day and he kind of threw the ball. He got angry. And I said, well, did that feel good to you? Did it feel good to react that way? And he said, no. And I said, well, instead of beating yourself up about it, how about the next time your dad makes a basketball shot, you say, good job, Dad. Yeah. Does that feel better in your body? And he said, yeah, because it's all about how we respond to life. And unfortunately, a lot of us are programmed to respond in the negatives as opposed to in the positive space where it's like, hey, good job at that. And no point in getting angry and harboring that guilt and that anger in my body, especially as a kid, you know?
Yeah. And the thing is too, we don't expect the best. That's like a fairy tale. Like, oh, you're being ridiculous, or you're being unreasonable. What do you mean expect the best? Like, what does that actually mean?
That's where I'm at right now. I'm like,
you and me both.
All good things happen to me. Everything always works out for me. And believe me, when you start to really believe that, it works. Because the universe on a quantum level has no choice but to match what you feel. That's your vibration. It doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you are.
Oh boy, that's a huge one. It gives you what you are. And it starts with you changing your frequency consciously. And how do you do that? You have to look at your beliefs.
You got to catch it.
And that can be a bit of unraveling because we are so indoctrinated with a belief system that we take to be ours. And then when stuff doesn't go the way you want, you're like going, well, what happened? Well, you need to look at how you live, how you roll, what you expect to happen, because most of us expect the worst things to possibly happen.
Right, because a lot of us have been through really terrible things. And so that like gets it's impacted in your body. Your nervous system remembers the negativity and then it expects the worst. And that's why I really push for people to regulate your nervous system, because it teaches your nervous system safety. Your nervous system shouldn't be in fight, flight, fawn, or freeze unless you're like being chased by a lion, which we are not, right? And so in general, there's a misplacement of safety in our bodies to where we're always expecting the worst. And I'm not saying positive affirmations are going to work right away, but it's the consistency, it's the accountability, right? Of holding yourself accountable and doing things consistently for yourself, because you're reprogramming the frequency. Right. Your thoughts are frequencies.
Right.
So if I think in my head, oh, of course that's not going to work out for me. Guess what? It's not going to.
But
if I apply for that job, or I go to an interview and I'm like, that's mine, I nailed it, then most likely, then that's going to match me, unless it's not for me and there's something better coming.
And that's a biggie, because I can look back at all of the things that I remember that I didn't get, and how disappointed I might have been at that time. And then you look at it and you go, you know what? I wasn't supposed to have that. If I had that, that would have taken me this way. And I actually like this direction that I'm going in right now. It's understanding that life happens for you. But if you don't think that way, then it doesn't feel like that's what's happening. The good and the bad, it happens for you. And that's a hard concept.
It is. It's difficult. And I try to tell people, like, there's multiple ways for you to get to where you chose to be in this lifetime. You can take the traffic jam, you can take the back roads, or you can take the freeway with no traffic. And it just depends on your choices with how long it takes you to get there. But it's always going to get you to the same place. And if it doesn't, then you have to come back and start over again.
Because that's also people's fear. I mean, we're very fear-based, us humans. We're afraid of everything. And we, like, people have a lot of regrets. Oh, I shouldn't have done this, or had I done something else. And to understand that you are going to get where you're going, one way or the other. It's
no matter what.
through joy or it's through misery. Pick. Pick one.
It takes longer through misery. And the manifestations come quicker when you're playing, you're enjoying, you're allowing yourself to just be, as opposed to like forcing. That creates resistance, and then it elongates the experience. So,
yeah, because we're taught you work hard and you die. You know, you get that message when you're little. You work hard and you die. And
that's what the school system's for. It instills fear. It teaches you how to be a good worker, how to comply. It doesn't teach free thought. It doesn't teach creativity. It teaches you how to be a good worker.
Yeah. And then you retire, and then what?
And then and then at that point, once you've retired, you're exhausted from forcing everything your entire life. And then you don't get to experience the things. And there's somebody who does transitioning and like speaks to people before they transition to the other side. Two biggest things I hear is, I wish that I would have spent more time with the people I loved, and I wish I would have went after my dreams. Those are the two major things I hear before they cross over, is those are the big regrets. And so I can promise that when you choose something that's better for yourself, if you choose to follow your heart, because of the quantum physics behind spirituality, the universe has no choice but to match your choices. So if you're like, I don't want to be around narcissism anymore, and now I'm going to set boundaries with narcissists and remove them from my life. And we're not judging narcissists because they're highly traumatized people. But if it's not aligned with you and they keep taking and taking, and you decide one day, you know what, that's not okay with me, then guess what? You don't meet people like that anymore. You don't get yourself into situations that hold the same frequency and vibration as those people anymore. You literally shift your reality into something more aligned, because the universe has no choice but to match what your choices are.
One of the things that I realized, I had gone through a smattering of rough relationships, I'll put it that way, and I just kept attracting these guys, man, you know, And one day I was very angry and very upset. And once I took a break, a angry break, like, okay, we're going to just sit for a minute, I began to realize that they were all reflections of my father. And I went, okay, what is the common denominator? And I realized it was me, that I was the common denominator to these people. And what I realized in that was that I kept drawing people that were emotionally unavailable.
Yep.
And I had to ask myself, how am I being emotionally unavailable for myself? And, I didn't want to admit that. I thought I had it going on. And so that revelation of this thing, you're out to lunch for yourself. I started to, before self-care became a buzzword, realizing that there were things that I needed to do for myself that I was not doing, that I was not taking care of my emotional space. And once I began to do that and do things like take myself out, to dinner, when at that time you didn't see chicks out by themselves. It was like taboo. You that means you don't have a man. Once I got past that crap, then my life started to shift. And then I started to draw the next guy that came into my life after that realization was like on point, So it's like the outer is a reflection of the inner, and that's a hard thing also to look at, as we had talked earlier about the collective and what's happening right now.
Yeah, well, you're seeing collective narcissism rear their ugly faces right now. And that's what's happening. It's because a lot of us that are doing the internal work on our own narcissistic traits, it's exposing from the light that look what happens. Light is information. Dark is lack of information. When you heal, you bring light into the body and it exposes what's not illuminated. Mm-hmm. And to touch upon another reason why women like us can attract narcissism is because we kept trying to prove our worth to people that were devaluing who we were. Yes, right? And there's very little difference between the narcissist and the empath. They're both highly traumatized. One projects it out and hurts others. The other internalizes it and people pleases.
Yeah.
And so they're both imbalanced. So one is to understand that if you're highly empathetic and you're people pleasing, is that you already mastered empathy. You're always going to be kind, empathetic, and considerate. You didn't come here to do that. You came here to set boundaries and protect it. Yeah. As opposed to like a narcissist who comes here to learn empathy, which is harder. It's harder.
It is, because when I think about, again, those previous relationships, there's a lot of realizations that I've come to about my dad over the years. And boy, you want to talk about a narcissist. And also just...
Same.
he was a master at throwing it back on you.
Yeah, it's always our fault.
Oh, God. You're like going,
we're
Daddy.
Crazy. We're overly sensitive. It's our fault. We're disappointments.
Right. Right. I remember, I think I was 7. And my uncle had promised to take me to the circus. And I had gotten ready. My mom had pulled out like a nice little outfit she had made for me. And I'm like all ready, shoes polished and everything. And I'm sitting there and he doesn't come and he doesn't call. And I started crying. And I remember my father turned on me like I had done something wrong. And he yelled, "Don't expect anything. That way you can't be disappointed."
Well, that's his mindset.
And I remember blinking and like the tears just rolled back up. And it was like, I remembered going through life for a long time with that in my head, And so to actually look at your thought processes and what you actually expect out of life and out of people is one of the best things you can do for yourself.
Yeah, and what's yours and what's not, because your voice becomes your child's internal monologue.
Yeah.
That's how that happens. Whatever way you communicate to your child is how they're going to communicate to themselves internally and to other people. You know, it's a lot of responsibility to be a parent. I've always said they do home checks for dog adoptions, but anybody can have a child, you know, like it never made any sense, but it does when you think about it in the grand scheme of the way the system works, because now we have more batteries.
Yes.
We have more energy to take, you know. That's a conversation for another day, but
I know, right? We could go on, but I think that one of the things that I talk about is, you know, beside taking responsibility, is being kind to yourself and not blaming yourself for loving this person or that person.
It'll perpetuate the guilt and the shame, and then the attracting of the vibrations that are similar to those things.
Yes, for sure. Because what did I do? I kept attracting the same type of guy, my dad. And once I realized that, you know, because it sounds really cliche, you know, you go to therapy and, oh, they want to talk about your parents, but that is a place to look, because you realize that, you know, your whole life track up until the point that you start questioning yourself about why you think the way that you think, you won't necessarily realize that it does track back to your childhood and things that you either had to do to survive, as I did, because I grew up in a very abusive home with very angry, scared people. You start to look at, oh wow, I don't have to bring that anymore. I don't have to carry that. I can let that go. And you don't know that until you look at it.
And that's the generational curse breaker. Right. The one who says, well, it stops here. My father was narcissistic, and so what do you think he taught me? Right. I was highly narcissistic as a young person. And so I had to look at those versions of myself and say, why did I manipulate to get that? Because I didn't believe I could get it any other way. Because that's how I was taught to communicate. Why did I do that? Well, that's what I was taught. I didn't have anything else to learn from except for what I was given as mentors, which is your parents, your teachers, your school system, and everything else around you. You're a blank slate when you're a kid in this life, but the quantum part of it is that everything you're experiencing here has already happened in one way, shape, or form somewhere else. And it's just playing out in your physical reality. And now you have a choice to make. Do I keep giving the older timelines that energy, or is this where it stops? Am I the curse breaker? Am I the one that says, you know what? No, I am going to speak kindly to myself. Because who better a receiver of my kindness than me?
You with yourself your whole life. You might as well.
And that's honestly how you cure the loneliness thing too, is like, it's me. It's always going to be me. I'm always going to be with myself. So if I can't stand myself, how is this going to work?
Woo, yes, indeedy. You know, you're reminding me of that, you know, that word alone. That's one of the marketing ploys of AI, is that the people that are pouring billions of dollars into this technology is saying, oh, well, you won't be alone anymore, you know. But I remember, I remember I was getting an acupuncture treatment, and I
love acupuncture.
Oh, cool. And you know, when you have a practitioner or practitioner, because I was going to a clinic and it was students that were working on you, and they would rotate the teams. And I had this particular team that were so in tune. We were just, I loved them so much. And that combination, that dynamic of those three individuals, but they had done a treatment. I think I had done something to my Achilles. And so they had done the treatment and they had gone off, and I was laying, and I left my body. I went,
very spiritual experience. Yeah.
Oh man, I was gone. And I remember very clearly having to step my energy up, and my great grandmother, who I never met in this lifetime, stepped her energy down, and we met in a neutral zone, and she said to me, you are not alone. And I remember at the time, I want her to tell me something like, oh yeah, you're going to get a big Broadway show and you're going to get movies and you're going to, you're going to live the rest of your life being a performer and you're going to have that house and you're going to have, that's what I wanted to hear. I did not want to hear you are never alone. But I think that that message is so important because so many people are dealing with being lonely.
Yeah.
And not understanding that you are surrounded by entities, energy, yourself. There's so much around you.
Absolutely.
And instead of focusing on, I'm so lonely, I'm being alone, there are so many ways to tap into all these different frequencies that will keep you company. And, if you, like, I was an only child for 8.5 years. So I had to depend on my creativity and imagination. I had plenty of friends that nobody could see but me.
I had a lot. They weren't imaginary to me, and they probably weren't actually imaginary. But yeah, no, same. I was alone up until 11.
Okay. So I remember I had asked my father something about when I was little. And he said, I asked him if I had imaginary friends, and you're right, they're not imaginary to you. They're very real. But I put it in that way. I said, I was told I had imaginary friends, and he was like, "You did not have imaginary friends."
Oh, because it's shameful to have those things at that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, he was just outraged. Oh God, how could you possibly think that? But but his reaction brought up more memories. That was the funny thing about how he reacted. I started to remember, very clearly. I remember
the reaction is probably what caused you to have imaginary friends, is because you felt lonely because you weren't understood by your immediate family.
Yeah, and plus there were no kids my age in my neighborhood on my block. It was just me. So I, had to occupy my time myself. And I'm grateful for that because it comes in real handy.
It really does. I mean, the creativity levels alone of just being by yourself and being bored. Boredom is a privilege with children nowadays. It's like the best time to figure out, what can I actually do with my time? If you don't get a chance to be bored and you're constantly stimulated, then you never actually have a chance to tap into your creative side.
Right, because you're being overwhelmed. With all this stuff coming at you. I think I was 10, and I told my dad that I was bored. And he said, in his usual loving way, "You should never be bored. You have a million things you could be doing." And I
remember that myself.
Yeah. And I remembered again that blink of, okay, I got to go find something to do. And it was harsh. But as I look back on it, I'm glad for it because it did help me become more self-sufficient, more self-sustaining in how I spent my time, in my creative juices, in the recognition that I didn't need to have a bunch of people around me to be engaged in my life.
I think deep on the loneliness level too is that humans are meant for connectivity. And because of the trauma and the programming and the illusion of separation, it really stops us from connecting on deep levels with people. And that's why we're here. We have accessibility to deep emotions and deep creative abilities. And what happens is that because of the separation that's happened, we tend to avoid it as spiritualists. And this is something I've really noticed trying to help people, is that they're good in the one-on-one space with me, but as soon as we're in the group, the vulnerability gets, there's like the safety goes away, and there's this mistrust with everybody. And it's just, guys, we are wired to have community, to build together, to exchange information, because we are all fractals of the same exact source of energy. And so why are we not coming together? We are puzzle piecing everything. And I've noticed in the spiritual community that because of trauma and because of the way especially women were raised, there's a lot of competition.
Yes.
There's a lot of comparisonitis, jealousy, judgment, things like that. And that's what keeps you lonely. That's what keeps you separated. But when you really sit with all of the parts of yourself and you accept them, and this is why I love what I do and why I've gone so deeply into my psyche and my body and my spirit, is because now I can see me in you. And now I can accept you, and now I don't judge you. And now I'm not competing with you, because I understand on a deep level, we are all facets of the same gem.
Yes.
Why are we competing? Why are we separating? You know? And so that deep internal work that takes you into that space, it causes you to be more accepting of community, of deeper, meaningful relationships, which is why we're here. We're here to connect on a really deep level with people.
Right. But I think, too, if you can't connect with yourself on a deep level, or you're not looking to do that, you are going to look at others in suspicion, you know, because we are mainly of a scarcity mindset. We look at people suffering and the poverty in the world, and we look at the extreme wealth. And so we use that as the barometer, as opposed to understanding that lack is only here.
Yep.
And there's a mentality. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that people that are poor think that, that's their mentality.
No, it's the accessibility again. It's that they don't have the tools to understand. Because look, I have lived in situations where I have had zero money. I've been homeless. I've lived on people's couches. Mm-hmm. I've also had a tremendous amount of money. And it is the mindset. It is the mindset. It's looping in your head that you have nothing. And when that loops consistently, it creates an energy. And again, the universe can only match that. It can't give you anything more because you're already expecting the worst, right? And a lot of people who have incarnated that go into those struggles is because they're getting the opportunity to overcome it. And that's the information that they need. You are getting the opportunity to overcome. If you are somebody who's overly empathetic and doesn't know how to set boundaries, you are going to receive the opposite of that in your life to challenge your growth in that area. Same thing with scarcity, same thing with fear, same thing with guilt. Because whatever you're resonating in is exactly what you've come here to overcome by using your free will. Using your choice making. And the thing is that even if you think you have choices, or you're like, I do have choices, you box yourself in them. You're like, well, I can't make any more money than I make right now. Nobody will ever hire me. Well, maybe you're not supposed to be hired. Maybe you're supposed to think about how wonderful you are and what you bring to the world outside of working for someone else. Yes. And that's what makes you millions of dollars, because that's actually where we're heading. The souls, the light workers, the shadow workers, the healers, whatever you want to call ourselves, we came here to flip the script, because once the energy transfers to us in currency, the world changes. We create heaven on earth with that currency. And so to the spiritualists that really have that mindset of money is evil, it's not the money, it's the people in charge of it. Money is currency, it's energy, right? Actually, money doesn't have any purpose until you give it purpose. Okay. And then I think what a really big thing that happens, and I've been noticing in the community as well, is visibility wounds. Because when we were in our power, something took it, something judged it, something devalued it, right? Look at the patriarchy, look at the trials on witches, which were just female healers, right? So now there's this visibility wound of, if I show my power, if I really step into who I'm really meant to be, somebody's going to take it from me. Somebody's going to hurt me. There's going to be a negative consequence. And again, that's the negative expectation of things that keeps people in a bubble. It keeps people from meeting their true potential. And it's not that I can't empathize with that person, because I was that person. I totally understand that person, which is why I've come so far, is because I was the people that I help consistently, because I helped myself. And so I don't say, I'm going to heal you. I'm going to present opportunities, information, and tools for you to heal yourself.
Right, because that's ultimately the healer. You can
That's
go
what it
to a
is.
doctor and they can, give you treatments that you end up healing, but your belief in those treatments and that doctor is what spurs your body to heal. It's
Yep.
not that somebody else heals you. It's an
It's a
inside
belief
job,
system.
you
Yep.
know, ultimately.
Belief systems are everything. Whatever you believe in is actually how you create your reality. If you believe money is hard to come across, then you will absolutely have a difficult time bringing it into your reality.
And
But if
that,
you say to yourself, money goes out and comes in just as quickly, there are opportunities for money everywhere. Money is infinite because that's what energy is. It's infinite.
Right.
Then you start to change your belief systems on that. And again, because it'll always come back down to this, the universe has to match it.
yes, and I can attest to that truth. I grew up with a scarcity mentality. That's what was presented to me in my home.
Oh, me too.
We were dirt, under the dirt, poor.
Coupon clipping, all the things. Yes.
Oh God, coupon clipping. Oh, good grief. We would go to the store and my stepmother would pull out a bag of coupons, and then you'd stand there while she went through all of the coupons, and you're like embarrassed out of your mind, because this is the they know, oh God, they have no money.
Look at that. As a child, you grew up being embarrassed of lack. So now there's an umbrella emotion connecting to your lack and your scarcity. Now you feel guilty if you spend money. You feel embarrassed if you don't have it. You feel ashamed when you receive it. It's such an umbrella that happens with these experiences.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle, and you're so wrapped in it, you don't really realize that that's what's happening, that you're wrapped in this cycle that you continue to perpetrate, and you don't realize you're doing that either. And it's
very subconscious, this stuff, just to everyone out there listening, no blame. Your subconscious is 10,000 times stronger than your conscious abilities. And so you're normally making decisions out of places you're not even aware of.
And that's the key, to become aware. And it comes with asking questions, because
full circle.
When I think about my growing up in the poverty, and we lived among people that were considered middle class. They did, they all owned their houses except for us. So it was all around me of people doing, way better than us. And then I perpetuated that once I got on my own, and I was in the industry that's always talking about struggle and, showbiz. So there's
the artist struggle, my goodness.
The struggling artist, right. You hear that. And so you get locked up into that the feast or famine mentality, that you working and then you're not working. And I got caught up in that. And then in 2014, I ended up in a really bad financial situation. And it was extraordinarily scary because I was being threatened. And we can do this, and we can come into your home, and we can take this, and the whole thing. And I remembered freaking out. Fear like a big dog. And I remembered I was falling apart. And one day I looked at myself and I said, Miss Thing, you gotta get yourself together, because you're getting on my nerves.
Oh my God. The self-frustration makes the biggest change.
It was like, you are getting on my nerves. You need to go to your room. Oh, you're already in your room. Okay. So it was like, it got to that point, and I started to look at where I was, because yes, it was definitely a blame game. It was cruel because they didn't have to do that, but they did. And so that's where my head was at first. And then Sly said something to me one day, and I went, am I doing that? And so I started to ask myself the question, are you doing this? Are you perpetuating this situation that you're in right now, based on choices you've made and based on your mindset? And as I asked that question, I started to ask more questions. And I started to go, ooh, okay, we're going to make some different choices now. And that was a huge turning point for me in terms of all aspects of life. Taking responsibility of where I was in that moment.
Decision making in general.
Yes.
Just making a decision, because when you don't decide, again, on the quantum level, you have all of these timelines open, you have all of these things open. Once you make a decision, you solidify it and you stop giving your energy away to things that are not aligned with you.
Yes.
And one thing I've really learned about this planet from growing up with a highly narcissistic father and a highly empathetic mother is that this universe does not operate on morality. It operates on audacity. It's because look at this. Look at the people that really make it. I could be an amazing singer. You could have a horrible voice, but if you believe you can sing, you are going to make it.
That part.
You got to believe in yourself, because it really does not operate on morality. It doesn't matter how much you're giving and giving and giving yourself away. It matters if you believe in yourself and how much you're giving to yourself, especially as a light worker, because again, always going to be kind, always going to be empathetic, always going to be considerate. And so actually you have to learn how to overpour that. You giving and giving is not going to make up for all the terrible things you did in this or other lives. It's not going to make people like you more. It doesn't operate on morality. It operates on audacity. It operates on, I believe, I will. And that's why a lot of people struggle with digestive issues, because the I will is in the solar plexus. It's in your stomach, right? It's your second brain. It's your gut. And so again, with the domino effect and how everything is connected, why our food system is the way that it is. Kill the intuition through the gut. That gets really deep, but that's why we operate on audacity here. We have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe in our gifts. We have to trust our gifts, because if not, somebody else who's not as gifted and not as talented, who believes in themselves, is going to get the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And then you'll be looking at them. Well, why they get it? I'm better than that.
Because I didn't believe in myself. The biggest thing I've come into this year specifically is understanding I am a treasure. What I bring to the table is valuable. Yeah. Okay, I am priceless. The universe pays me to exist because I'm that amazing. And that's not selfishness. It's not egotistical. I actually came out the other end of self-hatred, self-sabotage, not valuing myself, overgiving, people-pleasing, and saying, nope, I'm protecting this thing. This thing is so valuable. I, as a soul, am so valuable that not everybody deserves to be in my field.
It's called knowing your worth. And it may be a matter of you actually, because I've heard people go, oh, that's brainwashing. And it's like, well, you're brainwashed the other way to believe in
programming either way.
Right, you're right. So which programming do you want?
Program yourself to feel like crap, or program yourself to believe in yourself?
Exactly.
Your choice.
Exactly, where you're feeling good. Yes, that's right. So it's like and then we're always worried about what somebody else is thinking, about what we're doing. And when you start to value yourself, you don't care what anybody's thinking, because that was the biggest freedom I've ever had, people not caring. You know that there are people that are going to be in your boat with you, wanting to be in that boat, because you're either where they want to be in life, and you're an example for that, or they're vibrating at the same frequency, and they're like, yeah, I hear you.
Because people only have two choices when you start to step up internally. They're going to get inspired by you, or they're going to be afraid of you. So the people that are afraid of you, or jealous of you, or compare themselves, let those people wither away. They have their own lessons to go through. The people that stick around, that support you and love you unconditionally, it means they value that you're giving them the same thing. I speak on reciprocity all the time. If you are giving more than the other person consistently, you need to set a boundary. You need to have a conversation with that person. And we'll always make up excuses, but when it really comes down to self-worth, you've got to stop over giving to people that take and take and take and take and take, and they never give back. I literally only allow relationships of reciprocity in my field. That's it. The difference between your intuition and your fear, or any other thing that's coming up, is that your intuition always comes in calm, cool, and collected. It's a statement. Your fear, your anxieties, and all of the other things, they always come in as questions. Your intuition always has a solution. Yes. The other things always come up with problems, right?
Yes.
So what you were recognizing too is that the people around you were mirrors of what you could have chosen. You could have chosen to be bitter. You could have chosen to say anything. But you know what really it is that it's not always a lesson. Sometimes it's just meant to be felt. Sometimes it's just meant to be understood. That could be a lesson in and of itself.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Because I think that if you are more in tune also with what you're feeling, that's a barometer. If you don't know what you're thinking, look at what you're feeling, because your feelings are coming from what you're thinking. You may not realize that, but it's kind of like that. You can trace that back. I'm feeling bad. Oh, what was I thinking before that? And then
what was I thinking before I started feeling bad?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yeah, what was I thinking about before the feeling of feeling bad started to come up?
Yes.
There's always something going on in the thought processes. And that's like a really big thing, especially in the community for people like me who are clairaudient, which we hear energy, right? Our brain literally takes in energy and it turns it into a thought form. So I hear my intuition as a thought. I hear other people's thoughts as my own thoughts, right? And so like really the question too, again with questions is this mine?
I find myself asking that question too.
Is this mine? Is this my mom's scarcity mindset looping in my thoughts? Right? Did I walk by Pam in the grocery store and she was having a bad day and now all of a sudden I'm thinking negatively? Because we're so interconnected and we have this field of energy around us that the minute it touches anyone else, it starts to exchange information. Right? So as an empath, I would come home from the grocery store. I actually remember being so overstimulated in the grocery store that I would be in the middle of shopping and I would leave and I would go home and my husband would say, "Where are the groceries?" And I'd say, "In aisle 9, because I left them there because I couldn't take it anymore, because the noise of everybody else's information was coming into my field and it was disturbing my connection to myself." So as an empath, we've got to discern, is this mine or is this someone else's? And there's a really great technique that you can do throughout your day when you're in public, which is a simple callback and release, or a release and callback. I release everything that is not mine. I send it back to the origination with awareness. If you're that powerful, you can send it back with awareness. And I call back everything that is mine, because throughout your day, all you're doing is giving and taking information. And sometimes that makes it really difficult for you to know who you really are, because you have everybody else's energy in your field. So you're feeling it. And because of how gifted we all are, sometimes it's really difficult to discern, what am I feeling? Am I feeling the grief of my mother? Am I feeling the grief of me? What am I actually hearing, feeling, sensing? Is it mine? That's something that really changed my life, was understanding that a lot of the things that I was feeling were not mine.
You know, that's going back to what we were talking about earlier about asking questions, asking yourself questions. Yeah. But I think what you just shared is very powerful for people who are empaths and feel very deeply and pick up are very aware of what they're picking up. And
because we're meant to set boundaries as empaths. Like when you're watching the world play out, which is what it is, everything already happened and we are watching it play out in real time, because physical reality is slower than energy. It's always energy before matter. And so as an empath, you have to understand your biggest job here is to protect your empathy. It's to set boundaries with things. You can't be so absorbed into other people's things because it takes away from your gift. The empathy is to be used internally, so then you can use it in servitude. But that's only when you understand empathy on a deep level. If you keep giving empathy to other people but not yourself, it's not real empathy. That's people pleasing, right?
All right.
So we have to understand that the empathy goes inwards. That's how we stop judging ourselves. We accept ourselves for who we are. We work through any shame that we're holding on to, especially as women. I'll point that out, especially because of the way we've been raised around our bodies and our mental health and everything, right? But if you are only giving empathy to other people, it is not real empathy.
Yeah, because
and that's something I really had to learn.
I think that one of the biggest things for us, the biggest challenges, and I'll say particularly women, is to actually be in self-acceptance and self-love of self, and understand that you are your biggest prize. You know, we tend to make it other things outside of us, other people outside of us, but you are your biggest prize. You are, as you put earlier, you are a gem. You are a gem. And what do you do with gems? You polish them.
Yes, you take care of them, you honor them, you put them up on your altar, you worship them. This is what we're supposed to be doing with ourselves, right? And only until then, until you have, and this is why I really, really stress like regulation and shadow work.
Go into that deeper, please.
Biggest changes that you can have, which is what most of the spiritual community avoids, is deep shadow work, which is questioning the psyche, right? Going internal and understanding. And if you're somebody who has psychic abilities or mediumship or you're shamanic, you can do shadow work on other timelines. That's the quantum alchemy, right? That's the really cool stuff. That's when we get into like going into past life regressions and things like that. Not a necessity unless you're intuitively pulled, because I can promise you it's already showing up here and you can do something about it. But nervous system regulation paired with questioning your psyche is so profound. And a big thing that a lot of spiritualists are avoiding right now is embodiment. It's taking all the information that they have, because we all have it. We all have a deep connection to information, right? It's what sends us down rabbit holes. If you can't ground that information into your body, it is useless. And then you're regurgitating your information to try to help other people, but you're not. You're being a hypocrite because you haven't utilized that information to change your own reality, to change the way you feel so that you can meet your own bliss, your own joy, because that's why we come here. We don't come here to be in survival and be stressed out constantly. We come here as a school. Earth is a school for us to understand that even though these are presented to us, we can choose something better. We can choose what bliss means to us, and it doesn't look the same for other people. But I can tell you right now, if your nervous system is dysregulated, you're not going to have the container for that bliss. You're not going to be a container for independence, for more money, for abundance, for reciprocal love in your relationships, because your nervous system is replaying old fears. It's not allowing you to become a container for abundance. And this is why most spiritualists struggle with money, is because they're not regulated. They're not grounded. And so they're keeping all of this here. They're regurgitating all of the energy. But really, while you know it, because this is, I know, right? How do you perceive the information? How do you express that information from your heart? Or are you constantly expressing it from your crown? Right. Or are you able to actually express from your heart? Do you actually believe in what you're knowing, right? The solar plexus. Are you being creative with what you know? Are you grounding that knowing so deeply into your body that you can make changes in your life? Because if not, you're a fraud. You're regurgitating information and you're not using it for yourself. And I think that's been a really big issue in our spiritual community, is everybody's battling for who's right and wrong when there is no right and wrong.
That's
Everything is true.
That's right. That is, oh God, that's so good. There is no right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong. And actually get curious. Again, curiosity is one of our biggest healers. Why do we have differing information? Are you getting your information from a clear source? Am I distorted? Is it vice versa? How can we heal that together? But people go straight into competitiveness, and that's really what hurts us as a community. It's not that I'm right and you're wrong. It's why are we not coming together on the information? What is it within us? That's the shadow work. It's the constant questioning of the psyche. Why do I feel like I'm right about this? Why do I have that perspective on things, you know? And I've seen a lot of spiritualists like fight over mythology and what happened with Christ and what happened on these timelines. Guys, this is a process of remembering. The only way you can remember the truth is to sit with yourself. You're not going to get it in a book. You're not going to get it from a spiritual guru. You're definitely not going to get it from any of the high, the elitist type of spiritualists, because they're programmed as well to keep you in the dark. Everything that you want to know and learn, you have to remember. Because in quantum physics, we're going to blow our minds a little bit, time is not real.
Right.
The past, the present, and the future are all simultaneously existing in the here and now.
Yes.
Time
is a man-made construct.
It is. And so you're in a process of remembering that you already have access to all of this information. And the truth that separates us is personal truth. What may be true for me, what I feel is blissful, may not be where your bliss is. It may not be the same thing that brings you joy.
And it doesn't need to be.
And it doesn't need to be.
Right.
And that's why we've challenged a lot of religious constitutes, because they force like the Garden of Eden agendas, right? Where it's forced bliss. The reason we were given free will is so that we could choose. That's why we were given free will, so we could choose what brings us happiness. And then unfortunately, there was this construct that happened that forced us into survival mode. But again, the spectrum, if you were given this and that was your growth, then that's where you can grow. If you're forced into survival and then you choose this, look at the growth and the evolution that happens there in that spectrum, it's much more impactful.
Yes.
And so just for anybody that's having a difficult time figuring out what they're supposed to choose what makes you feel excited.
That is one of the most important things, to choose what makes you excited, choose what feels good. But we're taught, again, that's being selfish, that's being ridiculous, it's a fantasy, like all of those things that somebody who considers themselves a realist would say. And a lot of times that's what stops people, because of those messages that go out. But your biggest example is your own life. That's your biggest example.
Who are you hurting to get there? If you're hurting someone to get what you want, that's selfish.
Right.
If you're not hurting anyone to get what you want and you're just following intuition, and that can be subjective, right? Because I could set a boundary and that could hurt somebody's feelings, but it doesn't matter, because it's hurting me. I take care of me first. And then the trajectory of what my purpose is opens up, right? You have to value yourself. And I think that's something that we really all need to come into as a community, is that once I can value myself, is it actually selfish? Is me taking time for myself to make myself feel better selfish, knowing that most of us are going to turn it back into servitude?
And that's what is becoming a little bit more amplified in terms, again, specifically for women, to begin to get that understanding. I say you got to pour into the well if you want that water to flow.
Exactly.
You know, you got to pour into the well, but we are taught that that's being selfish. A lot of people struggle with that in terms of guilt. Oh, you know, I gave myself a day, and it's not.
But those are the biggest givers. The biggest givers are the ones that feel guilty taking time.
Yep.
Imagine how much impact you could make if you felt good all the time. I can't take care of anybody when I don't feel well.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's always, and that's why it's not selfish, is because the minute you fill yourself up, you're going to wind up overpouring it into other things, into servitude again.
It is. And I mean, you know, if you're walking down the street feeling good, other people are picking up on that vibe, even if they're looking at their phones. Your vibe is going out of you, because, as we said, it's energy. So you're telegraphing, you know, good vibes that's coming out. That's going to reach someone. It may reach somebody that you give your seat to on the train, and you get into this conversation with this perfect stranger who's no longer a stranger because you were kind. So it
reaches people who are willing to receive it.
And that is the thing.
And that's the balance. If they're not willing to receive it, they're not for you. They haven't gone through, and I try to really explain this to people. Let's just say you have an encyclopedia A through Z, right? And you've gone through A through N, okay? And your friend has gone through A through D. They're not going to be able to accept nor receive E through N.
Right.
They don't understand that. They haven't learned the lessons that come with those books, right? And so sometimes I feel like with spiritualists, especially as we get into like savior mood and we want to help everybody, we can't. We can help the people that want to be helped.
Right.
We can help the people that want to receive from us. We absolutely cannot make changes or help other people that are not ready to hear what we have to say.
Absolutely.
We can't. We can seed drop. I remember a client of mine, she was so sweet. And I would say to her, baby step things, right? Like, stop drinking coffee in the morning. It's taking away your magnesium in your body. It's getting you more anxious, right? Things like that. She wasn't ready to hear that. She wasn't. She came to me 2 years later and she said to me, I stopped drinking coffee a few months ago, and it's been changing my life. And so there are the little things where you can seed drop and that thing will happen later on for them, but they still have to have an openness. They still have to be willing to receive anything from you. You can't change people who don't want to change.
Oh boy. Boy, is that a biggie.
And that's when boundaries come up. You don't want to change. I have to stop giving to you because you're devaluing me now. You're taking me for granted. So you got to grow a spine and you got to leave. And you got to have no fear of what's going to happen when you choose that.
And expect the best, because that's the other side of it. Is if you don't expect the best, how are you going to get it? You ain't going to get it. You have to expect it. But so how can people find you? I'm going to have it in the show notes. How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty old school. I do everything through Facebook and email, but I have my website on my Facebook, which is just under Natasha Rivers. And from there, you can email me to book one-on-one sessions. I do group work. I do sound healings. I do a lot, honestly. It's really beautiful. But you can definitely find me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. But if you want to link to anything, those would be the two ways to contact me.
Okay. And as I said, those are in the show notes. We can go on about this like for hours, but I need to feed my dude. So
listen, I have my son and my partner here, and I am the chef of the house. So we will go alchemize this conversation through our cooking and feed our men. And you know what? Just before we go, just a hurrah to the men that are awakening right now and embodying their divine masculinity. Like, thank you so much for coming back into being a safe space for women to be the catalyst for the growth of the entire bloodline that you're bringing together with them. We are multipliers. So build us a nice foundation and watch us multiply all the goodness. Thank you so much to the men that have been doing the inner work, that have been challenging the patriarchy, and that have really just said, no, this is a goddess.
Yes.
I think they need to hear it more. I want to shout it from the rooftops. Thank you to the men that are doing the inner work. We need you.
Yes. I'm grateful for mine.
Me too.
That is for sure. Well, sis, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your information with us. And
thank you for receiving it. Thank you for receiving me. It was really, really lovely. I loved being on here. I love you. I love every time we come together. It's always amazing.
I love you too. Thank you so much. And folks, information is in the show notes. Book a session with her. You'll be happy you did.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sis. Mwah.
Thank you, sister.